Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This is Show and Share from Trainer's Warehouse, and we're joined today by Lenn Millbower. Len and I have been chatting for the past few minutes and realized that our history together probably goes back to 2000. So Len worked at Disney since 1985. I actually had my first Disney experience as a performer there in 1987.
Wow.
Um, and I was a clown for their Circus Fantasy event and went through some training. Uh, but Len has been a magician, a musician, a performer. He's run some of the attractions there. He's developed training. He's a trainer, a presenter, a consultant, and an author of like three books, and is helping us understand how to bring that Disney magic into our training. So, Len, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for being here. I'm glad to be with you, and I'm particularly passionate about talking about this stuff. You know, you have some trainers that are very focused on facts. They serve broccoli. You have other trainers that know how to have a great time. They serve brownies. And I get that there's a need for both broccoli and brownies in a training room, facts and fun, if you will, but just not in the same bite. Yuck. No, maybe a better way to do it is to alternate broccoli, brownies, broccoli, brownies, broccoli, brownies. So that way you have facts and fun together as one. So what I'm hoping to show you, and particularly Trainer's Warehouse is the one of, well, I would say the best place in the world for finding ways to get both the facts and the fun out there. And I hope to show you ways that I personally done this and use Trainer's Warehouse materials, and that Disney has done this because Walt was pretty shrewd. He said the gap between what is generally regarded as entertainment and what is defined as educational represents an old and untenable viewpoint. And interestingly, Walt tried to get into education and eventually gave up because the education experts couldn't even agree amongst themselves as to what the best techniques were. So he said, well, we'll just entertain them and we'll slip some learning in. Now, my focus is on something I call learner-tainment, and there are 8 principles and 8 action steps. And obviously, we don't have 20 hours together to talk about all that stuff. So we're going to do a quick overview of 5 things: emotion, evoke emotion, layer learning, present in pictures, take in surroundings, and mix in music. So let's talk about those 5, and we'll start with emotion. And here's an interesting thing about the Disney experience. It's very emotional. The Walt said, others hit the intellect. We hit emotion. Those who appeal to intellect only appeal to a very limited group. And if you think about it, that's one of the reasons that the company has been so successful. I can give you an example from my own experience in a mall near my house. The Apple store is jam-packed from the moment it opens. The Microsoft store never was. In fact, it's closed now, but the Apple store is still going strong and they've expanded. See, when you have a product that hits people emotionally, you succeed. And how do you do emotion in training then? Well,
Do we brainstorm with that question a little bit and have people kind of shot into the chat different ways that they've brought emotion in?
yeah, I like that. I'd like to hear that.
Let's just take a quick minute. Storytelling. That's kind of the first one that comes to mind for me also is storytelling, but there are a lot of ways to evoke emotion, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I'd like to say something about storytelling, and that is that there are 2 different kinds of storytelling stories you can tell. One is we used to do it this way. I think that kind of story is a waste of time because a trainee doesn't really care how you used to do it. They want to know how to do it now. However, if you've got a story about when somebody didn't follow what we do now and things went wrong, then that's an okay story.
Hmm. The dream builder, the crusher. Oh, John, you'll have to tell us about that later on. The dream builder and dream crusher activity. But yeah, evoking emotion can either be by hearing a story or by experiencing something yourself, right? So, um, it may be that you're playing a game or that you're doing a role play, and maybe it's challenging, maybe it's not. So there's a lot of different emotions that we can bring into play in the training room also, I think.
So let me give you an example, jumping off this picture on the screen here. Um, Most organizations, if they, let's say you have a new payment system, a new way that employees have to log their hours so they can get paid. In most organizations, they would say, well, today we're going to show you the new software and how it works and what you need to do to make sure your pay is in. That's a very logical approach. If I were designing that training, I would start out with, what are you doing this weekend? What do you like to do? I might even have people draw their favorite activities. And then I would ask people, okay, so what are those activities? And you could use that for introductions if you wanted. And then from there, you would say, well, what's the common denominator you need in order to do those activities? And the answer is money. And yes, you need money. So today we're going to teach you how to get paid properly so that you can do all those things you like to do. Now, that's kind of a simplified example, but it is the difference between taking a logical approach to here's what we're going to learn today, here are our objectives, and taking an emotive approach where here's what's really in it for you. And when you reach people logically, you can gain consensus. But when you reach them emotionally, you can change behavior.
Mm, love it. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on from there. The second one is layering learning. Now, there's in the training field, I've heard all sorts of discussions about whether learning styles are real or not. And well, you can't find the region in the brain that actually fits that. And I think it's a bunch of bunk. And then there's something else called multiple intelligences. But the Chip brothers, Dan and excuse me, the Heath brothers, Dan and Chip Heath, have this marvelous book called Made to Stick. And in that book, they said memory is like Velcro. The more hooks information has, the better it will cling. I believe that's true. And I like the four learning styles and the multiple intelligences. I like all of those because they're hooks. The more different hooks you can give people, the more ways you can teach the subject, the more chance you've got of it sticking. Now, let's talk about, let me give you an example, an orientation program. I love this. This is from our friends at the Babylon Bee. Man, welcome to hell with icebreaker gang, which is usually how orientation programs are. Here's your locker, here's your keys, here's your laws, here's what can get you fired. I designed an orientation program for Epcot Entertainment, and then later brought that to Disney's Animal Kingdom, where I was on opening crew. And it was very different. And I'm going to take a minute just describing this orientation. And we're going to tell you in ways how we did multiple intelligences. So the things in white are the multiple intelligences. So when people came in, there was theme music, and it was the Rescuers. And the Rescuers cartoon from Disney had a song that about how they're helping people, and their mission is to save children. We started out with a self-assessment. Why are you here? I'd like you to draw your reason for being here. Then they shared why they're there and talked about that. Then we said, now, what are all those things? And they were able to identify that it was a mission. That's right, it's a mission. We have a mission here too. Here's our mission. And we opened a top secret envelope at that point. And it was really interesting because everybody in the room be going dun, 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 as HR opened the package. And so we had group discussions about what Epcot's mission was. and we visualized it on the maps. And then we went out into the park and saw it and saw the landscaping and the recycling and the corporate footprint and facts and statistics. Now, here's the kicker. When we came back into the room, we asked them what they saw that worked, that fit the mission, and what they saw that didn't fit the mission. And I recorded that. And then we could take that to leadership to correct the food and beverage or the attractions or the entertainment, whatever they saw that needed fixing. And the capper on the day was, I said, okay, you identified your mission, you know our mission. How can you align the two? And then they would report, they would think about it, they'd report out on what they were going to do to be in alignment with it. Now think about how different that is from here's your locker, here's your keys, here's what can get you fired.
So it's sort of like, I feel like we think about experiential learning during training, but this is kind of even before while you're developing what you're going to do to make it a field trip, to make it a role play, to make it an experience and an emotional experience to be able to lead to that.
Yeah,
Um,
people would come out of that program saying, I learned more than I expected today. I learned something about myself too.
mm,
And we'd actually have people ask if they could take orientation again. I mean, think how absurd that is in most
yeah,
situations.
great testimony. I do think that Chip and Dan should change their name to Chip and Dale, though. Isn't that only right?
Yeah. The only problem is Dale's kind of stupid, so I don't know either.
Okay, forget that.
I don't know who would agree to be the stupid one. But okay,
All
so
right, take
we
us to number three.
looked a little bit at emotion. We looked a little bit at layering learning, and there's a whole bunch more we could talk about each of those. But again, time does not allow that. So let's talk about pictures. You think about what a picture is. You think about what a word is actually. A word is actually a picture that you then have to translate into meaning. So you don't necessarily need words all the time. You can use pictures too. And we're going to talk about colors. First, John Hench was one of his chief imagineers. He said, color is a language that people respond to consciously and subconsciously. When you walk down Main Street, USA, in the Magic Kingdom, you just feel this warmth about you. Some of it is the music playing, some of it is the smell of popcorn in the street, intentionally done, but some of it is the color of the buildings. It just reaches you deep in your soul. So how can you use color in training? Well, we've got 4 colors showing up on the screen: yellow, red, blue, and green. I'd like to ask you, what is the effect of each of these colors? What do these colors suggest to you? And Susan, if I'm saying this correctly, I think what we want you to do is in chat, write like, pick a color and write yellow and what you think the effect is. Is that the best way for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's
Red,
see.
yellow. I know somebody was having trouble with screen share. I think others are probably seeing it. Sometimes if you change your view and click on that, you can see. Ah, we're seeing that blues are calm and peaceful.
Mhm.
Yellow seems to be happy, bright. Red is intense, dangerous, caution. Yeah. Does this sync with what's in your head?
It does. It does completely. I missed the first one. Was it yellow you said was the first one?
I think I said blue
Yeah,
is kind of calming.
blue is
Yellow, I'm reading for folks, is sun, happy energy.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about that a little bit. And I have here what I think is an amazing PowerPoint slide. Obviously, they're not PowerPoint slides, they're road signs at Walt Disney World. And candidly, they're in the process of replacing these signs because they've become faded in time and they want to go to electronic signs. But let's look at how the colors are being used in this. The background for these slides is purple. Now, purple's a royal regal color, but it's associated with blue, and it is calming. And so blue or purple or somewhere in this family of colors is an ideal color for the background of slides. Most fonts should be in white because it's a neutral color, easy to read. However, the neurolinguistic programmers say that yellow is the first color the brain sees. So the critical information's in yellow, and that's exactly what they've done on these signs. Also, for warning people about things you need to know, red is the perfect color for that because he said it can get agitating. And then black and white arrow for people that might have a little trouble with color. This is pretty perfect for a PowerPoint presentation. And ironically, they say that the worst color combination is a white background with black text. And guess what we do all the time is a white background with black text.
Mhm. Note to self.
Uh, really, really. So let's talk to the next part of presenting in pictures, and that's using props. You can use props as visual aids, like to show people something they need to learn. You can frame the room. You can put the materials or the equipment they'll work with all around the room. You can hold a prop up to capture attention. You can use it for metaphors, and you can use it for people that fidget. So I've got a bunch of props here. What I'd like you to do is just pick a prop and tell us how you might use that prop.
And if you use one regularly in your training, but you don't see it here, feel free to share
Yeah,
that
by
prop
all
as
means.
well. Yeah. Yes, Lisa, you make an interesting point though about the neurodiversity. Noted.
It is. It's
Yeah.
often forgotten about too. We talk a lot about diversity, but we tend to not focus on diversity in learning.
Hmm. Love these answers as they're coming in. There's a piece of me as I think about props, and I think you guys probably know my background. I was a Ringling Clown for a year or so, which is what brought me to Disney early in my career. But I remember taking an improv class and thinking about how props, like, you've got a rubber chicken, you've got something, it is what it is. But what can you do with it outside of what it is? Like, a banana is a telephone, a rubber chicken is a pointer. That these props can take on different lives of their own. And I think it kind of or it could be like, what does this remind you of in learning? So, maybe it's a fidget toy on your desk, or, I have like random items on my desk. Okay, a honey bear, a fidget toy. Like, what could I do with these things? What points could you make
So,
or
so
ask your
let
learners
me
to bring
let
out?
me offer a couple examples of what I did at Disney with these
Please.
props. You see the koosh ball down in the lower right? We had because our subject matter experts for electricity, the Disney way, for the technicians, wanted to talk about how electric current and Tulsa and it was way too much. We had a hour-long lecture that we whittled down to a 10-minute activity, and the activity was on how electric current works. And what we did was we had everybody in a circle, and each one had a koosh ball, and they passed the koosh ball to the next person, and that meant that next person had to pass their koosh ball, and the next one passed their koosh ball, and that's how electrical current works. We were able to demonstrate it could have been a half hour in 5 minutes tossing koosh balls around the room.
But talk about the one also with the ball and
Oh
the
yeah, the ball.
rooms.
One of the things I was tasked with was third shift custodial, writing the training program for the third shift guys. Now, they're not going to sit in a classroom. They're working midnight to 8 a.m. or some such thing like that. These are the guys that are hosing down the Magic Kingdom after everybody's left. So, but they did need an opening activity to introduce themselves to each other. And they each had a broom because of what they do. And so I had a ball of the world, and I had the facilitator push that globe to somebody to stop it with their broom, and they would introduce themselves, and then they'd sweep the globe to somebody else who would introduce themselves. And in this way, we did introductions. Why was that an interesting activity? Because their job was sweeping the world.
So fun. And I
So,
saw other ideas for the World Ball also of introductions and tossing and the creativity that we're sharing with each other and that you can bring is inspiring.
so allow me to show one more. You see the invisible dog to the lower left. Now these days I've seen that, but back when I used it, it was pretty unusual. The food and beverage folks had something called FIFO, first in, first out, FIFO. And so one facilitator to be talking about the principles of FIFO, of food, first in, first out. And the other facilitator will walk into the room with the invisible dog. Here, FIFO, here, FIFO, and just walk through the room and leave. It was a way of getting people to remember FIFO.
Love it. All right. And Bonita cracked up. I saw that. Me too. All right. Keeping an eye on time. We have two more, right?
Okay, all this being said, the one thing I learned was to control the environment. Now, he's got theme parks, but you have an environment too. Imagine people are coming into your training room and this is what they see on the door, all those fingerprints. By the way, that was my hotel room. It's makes you wonder, was the toilet clean? And this is an example from a veterinarian. And if you look at these notes closely, they're all curled up and they're from 2 years ago. Does that mean that nobody's liked them for the last 2 years, or they're doing a lousy job now? And this is a well-known national restaurant chain. This is what you look at when you pick up your pizza. Think about your training room. When they come into your training room, what are they looking at? Because they're going to look away from you. You want them to see pristine. Now, this example is from Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. It's a convention hotel, so they know the people that work there are going to be walking into and out of the backstage areas. But look how pristine that looks. So that's how you build confidence, and everything you do in your room builds or detracts. So what do they see? What do they feel, hear when they walk in the room, when they touch the door, when they hear the sounds, when they smell the odor, when they see the room, when they see you? Are you crazy or are you calm? When they feel the temperature, read the slides, look at the walls, sit in their seats, open their materials. Every element communicates. And that's one of the reasons Disney has been so successful, is because they try to tie all those elements together. And you should be doing the same in a training room.
Mm-hmm.
The question for you, how do you make the environment inviting? Is there something you do?
And as folks are thinking about this, I'm also going to put a link. We actually had a show and share previously about creating a warm welcome,
Ooh,
which is really apropos here. So I'm going to, or maybe Sarah, if you're on, you can dig that out.
that's neat. Yeah,
So
we tend to forget about those things, but they matter a great deal.
for sure.
While you're typing, I'll give you an example I did with leadership training at the Mouse. I covered the tables with leadership quotes. And when the attendees entered the room for the first time, I told them their job was to find a quote they liked and put it on the wall. So then I had walls covered with leadership quotes that I could reference all the way through the training program.
Love it. I love it. And I love what I'm seeing playing music, which Len's going to get to shortly. Um, Chocolates, talking to each other, calling people by names, putting fidget toys out. Little plug for fidget toys, right? Lots of different ways of doing it. Great ideas, everybody.
All right, so I'll
Thank
move
you.
ahead then. So let's talk about music. Yeah, each of these lands in the Magic Kingdom, when you enter these lands, you hear appropriate music that tells you, it communicates to you where you are. Um, I do that as well. So this is an old list, but it is an example. This is a list I used for doctors and for dentists and dental hygienists and anyone in a helping field. I also could use a variation of this list for fashion. But you think about a convention of doctors when they're coming into the room, bend me, shape me. I got you, so I feel good. I want a new drug, shake your booty. You can't touch this because it hurts, you know. So I would use that when people were entering the room or on breaks. And this is important. When you have songs with lyrics, you only want to use them when you want the song in the foreground, when you want it noticed in primary. And what kind of songs do you use? Well, if any of you are musicians, bear with me. I'm simplifying this. You've got major keys and minor keys. Major key music, you can tell is happy, it's positive, it's optimistic. A lot of the rock stuff is major key music. And that's the kind of stuff you use when people are coming into a room or on break. However, there are times where you want people to have conversations with each other and not hear what the other table's saying, and you want to help their brains think. So those are songs without lyrics, and that's when it's in the background, unnoticed and secondary. And for that, you use minor key music. Now, what is minor key music? Well, if you listen to a piece of music and it's a bit slower, it's sad, it's reflective, it's thoughtful, that's ideal music for when people are talking to each other so that they're not hearing what the next table's saying, and it's helping their brains work. Uh, Happily, there are royalty-free uh, um, recordings out there. Options is a word I was struggling for. My own royalty-free music game show themes for trainers has just what you would think it would be. Things that sound like Jeopardy or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or a courtroom. But then there's a site called freepd.com. Kevin MacLeod, I don't know why he does this, but this guy posts tons of music at that website, and it's free to use. Free. And you can use that for background stuff, for moods. And then of course Trainer's Warehouse has a CD like mine. It's free to use once you've purchased it. You don't have to worry about royalties. And the nice thing about the Trainer's Warehouse CD is it has tracks about like welcome to the meeting, it's time to take a break, thank you for being here, we've got to say goodbye now, it's so sad. So these three places can give you music you can use. Now, they won't give you can't touch this in some of those pop songs. You have to get the rights for those. But this is perfect stuff to help move your training along. And there's something about music that just captures people and makes things better. For instance, this Susan, you should probably explain this Game Show Pro.
I will. I have one other question for you, and I realize that we're just about at the half hour. Hopefully folks can stay on. If not, please know we will have a recording of this. Quick question for you though, going back to your slide about using music, not just to set a tone before training, but during learning. While, you did talk about that it can drown out other groups. Is there brain science, or are you familiar with any of the data that talks about how people learn better with music? Is that a thing?
There is, and it's still in its infancy. I can tell you from my Disney experience that music establishes the mood in every area and every location of its parks. So I'm very inclined for it. And I've had great success having people talk to each other in groups with music playing in the background,
Mm, yeah.
because it's kind of like when you turn a TV on and you turn the sound off, people can't, they got to turn the sound on. So the music provides that kind of cover noise while people work. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm sold. Of course, I wrote a book on the subject, so I would be. But yes, there's enough science. Certainly, the Muzak company has made a fortune selecting music for shopping experiences.
Yeah, and just to speak to the a couple of the products that you have on the screen right now, Game Show Pro, and spinners and stuff like that, it's those things bring energy, but part of the energy is like the intro tune or the announcing teams, getting people riled up and clapping, and that sound and energy is built into a game show like Game Show Pro, which you see here. It's not often part of the less expensive ones that you might be able to just kind of find for free online or something like that. So yes, Game Show Pro is on sale right now, but it does have a hefty price tag. But you kind of get what you pay for. You get that energy, and it's very well done.
Okay, I'm going to move on because we're coming to the finish line here. Those are the five: evoke emotion, layer learning, present in pictures, stage your surroundings, and mix in music. I'd like to close by asking you two questions. Question number one: is your training so good that you would give a ticket to somebody you respected and admired to come and attend your training? If your answer is no, then what are you going to do about it? Just something to think about there. And
Good
as far
question.
as next steps, things I can help you with, well, there's a list of stuff on the screen. Susan, let me turn it back to you.
Thank you, first of all. And before we close and turn off our recording and so forth, I just want to open it and welcome folks to turn off their muted or turn on their mics and either ask a question, share a reflection, suggest something that you're still wondering about that you'd like to ask Len or any of the other folks in our community.
Yeah, because we were going 90 miles an hour there.
We did. We got a lot in. Anything else you wonder about? Mario?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think with the frequency of trainings, response of the people and everything, I think sometimes I get like flat on my emotion transmission and feelings and everything, and this was a refresh of what we should always consider and do, because when we get into the park, we're great Disney fans. Me and my family, we try to go every 3 to 4 years. We live in South Mexico, so it's a little hard for us, but we have gone several times, and every time when we get in there, after we pass this sign saying that you enter the world of imagination and everything, I think that's the same thing that we should transmit when people are in front of us in a training session. uh,
Yeah, yeah. But let me offer this example. The people that are performing on Broadway do that show at least once a night, and sometimes there's matinees. So they're doing 6, 7, 8 performances a week, and they have to be on and fresh and deliver the emotion every time. And how do they do that? They totally sink into the content and the character. And I would suggest that what we do is no different. And
Hmm.
that's how we should do it.
Yeah. Yeah, we are facilitators, but there are so many in our community that have background as performers or, you know, just recognizing, as I wrote in the chat, that our energy is contagious. So whatever we're emitting is it flows through the room, both positively and negatively, right?
Very true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Thank you, Mario. Any other thoughts or things you wonder about that you'd like to share? All right. Well, Len, let me say a big thank you to you. Thank you for being here with us. And I know you have some final words for us as well.
Yes, the last thing I'll say, hopefully I'll see you in the park sometime. Hopefully your trainees will want to attend your sessions again because they're so good. And if any of that is true, then I only have one thing to say, and that is inspired by the words of a former boss of mine.